Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 383 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. We are 6 days away from the NHL trade. Actually, 5. We're actually 5 days away from the NHL trade deadline, and the trade deadline's looming. Rumors are swirling, and we're here to talk about it all today. I am joined by Mark Allred. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing really good, Sam. Glad to be back after a week's hiatus. And super stoked to have this guy right beside us.
And guess who's back in black? David Collins, how are you?
Man, it's been a tough couple weeks. I picked up some sort of bug on Monday, and I'm still dealing with that. So I apologize to the viewers and the listeners if I sound all nasally, but it's tough. The NBA deadline the trade deadline's coming past. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. The Blue Jays don't really know what they're doing, so everything is really solely focused on this trade deadline for the Bruins for me now. So definitely gearing up for a what should be a fun Friday. Sam, I do have one thing to ask you about. I think it's the first time we've talked since Alex Bregman signed with the Red Sox. So there's been a couple of reports out there that he's going to play second base. Devers is kind of upset they want to push him off third, but we all know that the Red Sox are better if Bregman plays third. So I just want to get some quick thoughts from you on what you think about Bregman and where you think he's going to play.
I think it's a great signing from the Red Sox to get a guy like Bregman there. I mean, the bat he brings is something that the Red Sox have been lacking for a long time. I think if Devers was smart, he would DH. He would be the designated hitter. I mean, we're not paying him $300 million for his terrible defense. We're paying him $300 million for his home runs, and he hits a lot of them. So, if I would start, I would put Devers at DH and I put Bregman at third. That's what I do. So
makes sense to me.
I am happy to have Bregman as a Red Sox. That is for sure. Mark, you had some sort of announcement. Go ahead.
Well, it's not an announcement. It's just more or less we're looking for content creators. So if you are an audio podcaster, you're a website writer, or you're a YouTube videoer, you're welcome to join us here at Black and Gold Production Sports Media Company. We're looking for breaking news writers from all levels of the Boston Bruins organization, from the NHL down to the ECHL. And we have credential media opportunities for those who qualify. So if you want to jump on board this B&G content freight train, please go to Black and Gold Productions LLC at gmail.com and send us a cover letter along with your resume, and we'll see if you have a fit here. 2025 is going to be a bigger year than ever for us here, and we are growing. We are accredited website through the National Hockey League, and obviously we're frequent flyers on level 9 in the media section at TD Garden. So we want to climb more rungs in the ladder of Boston sports media. So if you feel that you can contribute and you contribute regularly with quality content, please reach out. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I can attest to that. I joined this media company over the summer, and I'm still here in March. I'm still kicking and having a good time. So come come join us. It'll be a good time. Well, first of all, we haven't had a podcast since for the last week. We were off last week, but we're back. And the Bruins came out of the Four Nations break, and they decided to still be the Boston Bruins. They lose 3-2 in overtime to the Anaheim Ducks on last Saturday, the 22nd, in a game where the Bruins were down for a lot of the game, and then they come back, tie it late, and then it gets called back to an interference, and then they count it anyway, and then they go into overtime, dominate overtime, and then the first chance Anaheim gets, they score to win. Kind of usually how those Bruins overtimes have gone recently this season. David, I'll start with you. What happened here?
It's so funny. You get on. I thought it would be a good idea to go on Facebook and join these Boston Bruin fan groups, and I was like, you know what? Like maybe there's some logical thought. Man, was I wrong? It's all rebuild and Swayman is the problem and all this type of stuff. What people don't realize is the Bruins are without two of their top defensemen, probably their top two defensemen right now. And it's hard to win when you don't have someone to just bring up and replace those guys. You know, like Osterley and Callahan, those guys, they come up, they do as good as a job as they can, but they're not Charlie McAvoy, they're not Hampus Lindholm, and that just basically is where it lies right now. So people can, you know, complain about Swayman, complain about the defense all they want, but they're in a really tough position right now with both of them being out with what seems to be, well, we know that Hampus is going to be long term, and McAvoy seems like it's going to be longer than what we wanted as well. So, you know, the patience that fans are going to need moving forward is going to be tested for sure. And we'll see where it goes. In terms of the game itself, I mean, Sam, you summed it up pretty well. It was pretty much a classic Bruins game, you know, get to overtime and then, you know, immediately just look like, you know, you didn't want to be there. They look tired, and then here comes Anaheim, scores the winner, and you know, the lights are out.
Mark?
Yeah, without getting into the game, because it was so frustrating, because it is the Anaheim Ducks, and it just seems like the Boston Bruins cannot beat anybody that's lower in the standings than them. And this has been going on for years. But I remember our last podcast when we were talking about the Four Nations break and the 2 weeks out, we weren't going to have Boston Bruins hockey. And I did say, and I can clip it, I can go back and clip it if you want me to, but I did say that this was going to be a scheduled loss. Just for the pure fact that I look back in trends of the Boston Bruins for years, and anytime this team has 3 or 4 days consecutive off, the next game is a loss. So this team had 2 weeks off, and I kind of had a feeling that this was going to come down to the wire, but ultimately be a loss. So it's unfortunate, but you know, it's just how the season is going right now. You can't get any consistency. You seem like you're playing down to your competitors. And yes, I do agree with David. We are missing 2 huge pieces on the back end with Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy, obviously. So, you know, it's really tough to be a fan these days. And I understand the frustration, but with these 20 some odd games to go in the regular season, there's still a little bit of positives that come out of it. You know, we have the trade deadline coming up and so on. So maybe we might be able to adjust a little bit. I know we're only a couple points out of a playoff spot, but still, it's hopefully it gets better from here.
They then took on the Maple Leafs on Tuesday, and they actually reversed Leafs themselves. They were up 3-0, and then they blew it. The Leafs came back to tie the game at 3. The Bruins took the lead again, and then they blew it again. Great job. And then they lose in overtime again. 5-4 to the Leafs in overtime on Tuesday night. Man, talk about frustrating, to say the least. I didn't even see the third Bruins goal. Nesson was in commercial. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Geekie scored, and then Nesson was like, oh man, that was brutal. You should have seen my reaction. I got up out of my chair when they came back they cut back like I'm in the middle of play, and then they went back to another commercial break. I stood up and I was like, what is happening? Why did it say it's 3-0 and where's the power play?
Hey, as the show's fat guy, that braised beef did actually look pretty good, huh?
It did, didn't it? It sure did. It looked good. But man, I was so frustrated when they were in commercial. That was brutal. But you know, this game was just frustrating, Mark.
Yeah. It's when you go ahead and you look so good, you think the final outcome is going to be, you know, hey, maybe they got it for this game, and then they just give it up. It's so tough to watch this team play with the lead because the signs of they're fully accelerating on the gas pedal, and then all of a sudden they get comfortable. They get way too comfortable, and they let up, exposing areas where 31 other teams can nitpick at and find ways to get the puck in the back of the net. And I, for one, hate losing against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I can't stand it. So, yeah, it's just a tough one, especially at home. You know, It's not a good place to play at home when your fans are so bipolar. And I mean that in the respectful way, as in you're passionate, but you also clearly are frustrated with way things are going on, including management, and the fire Sweeney chants are still happening.
I actually, no, it wasn't in this game. It was in the Islanders game. I heard a different chant at Don Sweeney, which I don't think I can say on this podcast, but it wasn't a good one. It was not a good one. I'll tell you that. It was a very expletive-filled chant at him. So this goes to show how frustrated the fans are. David, what happened here?
Yeah, I think Mark put it pretty well. You know, nobody likes to lose against the Leafs when you're the Bruins, but to say they're passionate, that's a great way to put it. Because when the Bruins are winning and everything's good, they're passionately positive. When the Bruins are losing and it looks like a dumpster fire, they are passionately negative. They are out with their pitchforks and they are ready for war. But after coming off the Four Nations, it was so fun. I don't know if fun's the right word. It was kind of weird to cheer for Mitch Marner in a Canada uniform. But man, he played lights out in the final. And then to see him put the move on Swayman that he did in overtime to score that goal, like that was just an absolute heartbreaker. The losing against the Leafs is what it is. I don't put too much into it, especially in the regular season. But being up 3-0 and then 3-1, you're like, okay, no big deal. And then 3-2, now you're like, uh-oh. And then the full comeback, the second comeback, and then finally to put it away in overtime. It was disheartening, to say the least. And whenever I think about home games like this, I always think about, just imagine that, you're someone like me. You get to go to one Bruins home game maybe ever in your life, and this is the game that you get to see. Like, it'd be very disheartening as a fan if this is the only opportunity you got to see the Bruins play at home.
And to think that they spent a lot of money going to this game, right? It's like, here's the thing. Okay, Bruins fans are already way too expensive Bruins tickets are already way too expensive as it is, right? Because we're in a big market. Boston's a big market. Tickets are already expensive anyway. This is the Leafs. I have hair in my mouth. Ugh. They're playing the Leafs. Okay? This is the Bruins' biggest rival at the moment, besides Montreal. I mean, historically, it's Montreal. Right now, it's Toronto. This has got to be, like they're probably charging $150 for nosebleeds. The Sherpa seats, if you're a Patriots fan, you understand why I said that for Gillette Stadium. They call them the Sherpa seats, the way up there in the nosebleeds. They're way up there, $150. And you see the Bruins just lay down and roll over and die after the Leafs tied the game at 4. It was crazy. I couldn't. Go ahead.
Not only that, but recent reports come out from Matt Porter, but the Boston Globe beat writer, and he wrote an article about the Bruins are going up on season ticket, say 4%. After a year like this, they're still going up 4%.
Who is in charge of this? Okay,
but I want to kick back a little bit to the people that are the season ticket holders that have a little bit of sense of entitlement per se, because they are spending a fortune. Listen, I understand your frustration, and when you tell me and others on social media, I'm done, I'm giving up my tickets, and that's a source of frustration that you want to bring on to them. I understand, but I will say that there's a there's a waiting line for 3 or 4 years for season tickets. So and a Bruins fan's born every 10 minutes. I'm not sure if that's fact, but somebody can look it up. But if you leave that seat, I guarantee within minutes it's going to be taken real quick.
Yeah, 100%.
It's an original 6 market. It's going to go real quick. It's not like a team that's I don't even know. Go ahead, Sam.
Speaking of pitchforks, that's what I want to do after Thursday's loss to the Islanders. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. I was so pissed off at this game. I was legitimately frustrated because they just could not score. The shoot the puck video that Mark and I post all the time, okay, that it was not necessary this one. The Bruins did that a lot. If there was a score a goal video, that would be something a little different because, man, they could not score to save their lives on Thursday. The only way they got one was a weird bounce, kind of a fluky goal from a corner that I originally thought went off Wotherspoon and in the net. So Pasternak got his 31st, and then they gave me a little bit of false hope in the end. I thought they were going to tie it, and then they just fell apart again. A late collapse again. And they lose again. It's just, when is it going to end, you know? Mark?
Yeah, very frustrating. And I hate these games. Lou Lamoriello has always had a style that travels from New Jersey to the island and so on. It just seems that like that really dead flat hockey. And to be totally honest with you, the Bruins have done that more than a handful of times this season. But yeah, this was a tough one. Constantly are letting guys in the slot be uncovered, regardless if it's a power play or not. If it's 5-on-5, whatever, you're not covering those people because they're getting there. Like, who was it? Was it? Oh, geez, I can't remember his name, but he was just like all alone right there in the slot and just fired it right in.
Palmieri?
Yes, Kyle Palmieri. It just, he was covered a little bit, but still got a shot off. But still, that defenseman, in my opinion, should have gotten a little bit more stick action on him in front.
100%.
But the game was just, it was just another frustrating loss.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah, I was trying to find the shot totals of this game. Anyone have it by any chance?
It was like 30. It was like 36 to like 17 or something like that. It was ridiculous. I'll pull it up.
So again, I'll bring up the
39 to 20.
39 to 20. Okay.
Yeah.
So like you got 39 pucks on net and you only get one in. So it's a matter of, is it you're taking bad shots? Is it the goalie's just standing on his head? It seems like in a lot of these games, the Bruins goalies are being outplayed no matter how good they play. But again, this is another, and I'm going to keep bringing it back because it just shows how irrational fans can be sometimes. This game, the Bruins gave up 2 goals on 20 shots and only scored 1, but yet Swayman is the problem in the Facebook groups. But then the Penguins game, they win 3-2. Korpisalo lets 2 in, and he should be the starter moving forward. And it's just like, you don't make any sense. They gave up the same amount of goals. Swayman can't go out there and score for them, like. It's so funny to look at. I think Neil actually said something really good there. Boston sports fans have been spoiled by championships and consistently contending teams for 2 decades. And it's really true. And that's kind of, I guess, one of the problems with Bruins fans is that you do become spoiled and you have these expectations to be contenders every single year. So when you have these years that don't go how they're supposed to, or, the minor rebuild years or the retool or whatever you want to call it, fans don't understand that, sometimes you got to take one step back to take 3 steps forward. But it's, I think that's a great way to put it, is that, a lot of times we are spoiled with that and our expectations are very high in these situations. So sometimes we got to sit back and look at the human side of it of, you can't always be a contender. And I know that some people are preaching, they're close to the wild card and I want to see them push for a playoff spot. The players are not going to go out there and purposely lose. I can tell you that much. But seeing them lose right now and boosting their position in the draft, I'm not overly upset about it. And I'll be the realist if I have to. And obviously, I'd like for them to win every game that they play. But considering where they are and considering the influx of this roster right now is just it's interesting. I'm not used to being in this position as a Bruins fan. So.
Right.
It's weird to not so much cheer for the negative, but it's weird to be okay with the negative results.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They like say, okay, well, if they lose, better draft position, guys.
Yeah.
At a better draft pick. Although the lottery is kind of like a clusterfuck, but you have a better chance at a draft pick at that point, right?
I also, sorry, Sam. Palmieri has. I think he has more goals against the Bruins than he does in against any other team in his career. He has like 14 goals in 37 games or something.
Why is that not shocking?
I know, right?
Can Kyle Palmieri either come to the Bruins or F off?
He's too old at this point.
You know? I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. Good point here. Goalie blame is excessive, but Swayman has definitely let in some soft goals this season, which is out of character for him. 100%. He's let in a couple of bad ones, for sure.
Yeah, Ryan Bosworth, we just highlighted right there, is actually one of the people I'm interviewing for a position here at B&G. So welcome to the stream, Ryan. Thank you, everybody else that's been in the stream and offering us questions and so on. You guys are the best. You guys are what makes this channel go. So can we get a like spike? Is that possible?
Yeah, let's get a massive like spike over on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, go over to the Black and Gold Productions YouTube channel and go subscribe and hit the like button on the live stream. Make sure to go do that if you have not yet. But I would even argue that he gave up Swayman gave up a soft one Thursday, the first one that he gave up. Shots were 16-1. And then Romanov comes right out of the box and just rips one by Swayman. And Swayman catches those 99 times out of 100. I'm not sure how in the world he missed that. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. So it was just one of those frustrating games to watch. You're just like, man, can they score a goal, please? For crying out loud, score a goal. They just could not. They didn't have a problem scoring a goal in this game, though. Because they won for once. Guys, I know it's crazy. It's kind of a wild concept. They haven't done that. This is their second road win since Christmas. It's weird. Okay. The Bruins won a hockey game on the road. Okay. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday, 3-2. All right. So Pastrnak scoring in the first 90 seconds on a gorgeous, cross seam pass from Geekie to Zacha and Zacha to Pastrnak in the backhand. And then Pastrnak buries it and make it 1-0. Then the Bruins get a power play. And then Marchand goes down. To me, it looked like they were kind of, the ABC broadcasters were kind of shrugging it off. To me, it looked a little dirty, but that's just my opinion. So Marchand's out the rest of the game. 30 seconds later, the Bruins respond. Mason Lohrei scores a power play goal, which the power play's been better.
So good.
The power play's been better recently. I'm actually surprised. He rips one by Nedeljkovic, make it 2-0. And then they defend a lot of the game, keep it 2-0, and then the Bruins get another power play, and then they give up a shorthanded goal with 5 minutes to go in the third period. It was Anthony Beauvillier. And my YouTube chat was like, oh, well, there it is. It's over. And then the Bruins iced it with an empty net goal to make it 3-1. Shorthanded empty net goal because Koepke caught a double minor for high sticking. Anyway. And then they score 20 seconds later. I'm like, you can't make this any more difficult on yourself. So they win 3-2 against the Penguins. David, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on yesterday's win against Pittsburgh?
It's always nice to see your go-to guy get a goal. I'd love for Pasta to average a goal a game. It seems like he's always carrying the load offensively. Man, I'll tell you one thing. Mason Lohrei, the dude is so talented offensively that if he can figure it out defensively, he is going to be a stud of a defenseman. And I know he's only young, and the Bruins are usually pretty patient with big defensemen like him. He's fast, offensively talented, so now he just has to work on the defensive side of things. But, man, he looked good yesterday. It may have been, in my opinion, one of his, if not best game of this season and possibly his career, just based off his positioning on offense, his the way he would join in and breakouts and things. He looked really good in my opinion. We all know that his biggest struggle is defense, and sometimes he pinches a little bit and he gets caught out of position. If he can kind of grow and mature and get that taken care of and not be a liability defensively, I really think the Bruins might have a diamond in the rough here. Korpisalo looked pretty good. I think it was 33 shots. He only let in 2 goals, so always nice to see your backup get a win there. And with the way that I think 2 or 3 goalies have been traded so far this year. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could be moved. I don't see it happening, but I wouldn't be like terribly shocked if a team came out of nowhere and just offered the Bruins some sort of compensation to get them off their books. They might have to retain a little bit of salary over maybe this year and next year, but if anything, that's just going to boost the price. So I'd love to see him moved at this point, but moving forward, depending on what happens at the deadline, I assume they're going to sell off some pieces. I'd expect Korpisalo to get a bit more work. So that'll be fun to see down the stretch as well. But again, it's nice to see the Bruins win. Obviously 3-2 is a close game, but there's so many negatives that you can take out of even in a win. Like to give up that really late goal after whenever you get an empty netter, automatically you think the game's over. That's just the way it is. But to have them come back and score again, it's just, I don't know, it makes you tighten up a lot and realize that there are some significant issues with this team that need to be figured out before they're going to be honest contenders again.
Absolutely. Mark?
Yeah, this game for me was, obviously 2 points. You get them when you can get them. And even an ugly win like that, we'll take it. But I do have to say what Neil said in the chat about the Pierre-Olivier Joseph hit with a Marchand. I really liked the way the team responded and then made him very uncomfortable afterwards. Ultimately, getting him out of the game. Hopefully he's not too injured. I'm not saying I like when players are injured. I'm not saying that, but you did enough for your captain or a teammate to knock that player out and make his afternoon very miserable. So I love the response there as well, and hopefully that continues because that is our identity. You know what I mean? It really is. We do stick up for each other. That's what the Boston Bruins are all about. So, yeah, and towards the end, it's another game where it comes down to the final 5 minutes, and it's like, no, don't say that. Don't do that, or just think of it as another time in another area of the game, and not give up so many late goals because that's what's really killing this team.
Yeah, 100%. That's why on my streams, it's not the Ford F-150 Final 5. It's the BNG Final 5. See?
Love it.
There you go. But I love the hit from Kastelik. I love the response. Go after our guy, we'll go after you. That's kind of how that went down. I mean, obviously, I'm not advocating for a guy to get injured, but, I mean, you take out our guy, we're going to try to take you out. So,
yeah,
I call it at that point.
What else? The other thing I liked about this game is you got off to a quick start, and I like the way that they set the tone with that Pasternak goal, and now it extends his point streak to 17 games, which is awesome for him. It's really good to see him turning around. Now, listen, let me ask you guys something real quick here. Since Pasternak has been on this streak, do you guys feel that the beginning of the year he was hampered with a type of injury, and now he's like feeling so much better and he's more himself?
I have a feeling that there was something going on, but now he looks like the Pasternak we saw 2 years ago.
I think for me, I think he was too tight at the beginning of the year. I don't know if it was so much an injury, in my opinion, as it was he felt like he always had to do something when he had the puck. But now that he feels more comfortable sharing the puck, because we're saying point streak, not goal streak. So I think he feels more comfortable passing the puck now. But then in doing that, because he's now a threat to pass the puck, the goalies have to be honest and they have to play the other guys that are with him. So we all know at the beginning of the year, he would set up in like that OV spot and get the one-timers. Well, now the goalies are realizing that he's going to pass out of that sometimes. So it's kind of opening up more doors for him. So I don't know if it's so much, and maybe he was injured, and you're right. But I'm thinking it may have been something to do with just letting loose and kind of not being afraid to share the puck with teammates, and then also, picking his spots to score when he can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as Ryan Bosworth has mentioned, he did get banged up a little bit in the Worlds over the summer, so that definitely could have had something to do with his late start. Because if he even said, if I'm not mistaken, from one of our guys that were in the locker room, mentioned to them that, yeah, I mean, his training was off to a rough start because of what happened in the world. So he really didn't get like a month and a half worth of skating because of that, and then starts to get healthy, and then, you know, obviously goes into the season with a little bit of struggles. But really good to see him, regardless of the season. That's your elite goal scorer on this team. You want him to be better, and regardless of where they are in the standings as well. If you get a player like that, moving forward, it's going to be good for not only the rest of this year, but also sets a tone for next season and different expectations.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring up a really interesting point here. I've been seeing a lot more of this recently. David Pastrnak for MVP. Legitimate question. I'm throwing it out because if it was not for David Pastrnak, right now, this team would be a bottom 10 team in the National Hockey League. Pastrnak is keeping the Bruins competitive in the playoff push. Whether fans agree with the Bruins still being competitive or not, the Pastrnak is keeping the Bruins competitive in a playoff, in the hunt for a wild card spot, right? If this 17-game point streak, I mean, oh my God, you know, if Pastrnak didn't have half those points, they probably wouldn't be in a good spot right now. So,
yeah,
he's having he is on a tear right now. So, if Boston makes the playoffs, he has a 2018 Taylor Hall argument. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Taylor Hall pretty much carried New Jersey on his back to the playoffs in 2018. If the Bruins make it, it's because of David Pastrnak. It's not their defense. It's not their goaltending. It's not their offense. It's only Pastrnak, really, for the most part. Morgan Geekie, maybe a little bit too. But for the most part, 95% of the reason why is Pastrnak.
But Sam, you can kind of tie the Geekie the Geekie goals in with Pastrnak, because if it wasn't for Pastrnak, we both know that Morgan Geekie would not be Morgan Geekie.
Right. That's true. Neil, oh my gosh, look at the stat right here. Pastrnak with 75 points, Marchand second with 47.
Yeah,
dude,
that's why we got Neil on our team.
Dude, that's an insane stat. There's a 28-point difference between first and second place in team points. Oh my God, that's wild. Anyway, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the Don Sweeney presser. From last week, and when was it? Sunday? Was it last Sunday, Mark?
Yeah, it was Sunday.
Yeah, it was last Sunday, and he says that Hampus Lindholm is pretty much done for the year. He says McAvoy's going to be out for a while. I'm thinking he's probably done for the year. I mean, he's in a sling. I mean, that's not a good sign. I mean, so I'm assuming he's most likely done. And the entire presser sounded like he was waving the white flag on the season and saying this season's a wash. This season's done, and we're trying to, like he said during the question about if the recent injuries will change his strategy for the deadline. He said, quote, "Well, I think historically we've been pretty aggressive. Yeah. When our team's been in a position, I think we'll take a much more cautious approach as we approach the deadline. That being said, if there are opportunities to improve our team now and certainly moving forward, whether that's positional shifts or other teams are trying to identify that, we may have a strength that. We will look at all opportunities to improve our team now, but more importantly, moving forward. I mean, just stuff that happens during this period of time, and it may plant a seed for the draft and beyond, but there will be a lot of conversations with people asking what possible moves we can make. We're just going to take a little more cautious approach in terms of as being aggressive as we have been in the past." So Don Sweeney, the Bruins have obviously in the past couple of years have been really aggressive at the deadline, trying to add and trying to get better for the postseason. This is not that. This is him saying, I don't know. Kind of like a 50-50. Maybe least I'm not ruling out that we could still buy, but maybe there's a chance of, maybe we could sell and, look forward to the future. That's the first time I've ever heard him say that. I don't know about you, Mark. That's the first time I've ever heard Sweeney sound like that.
Yeah. That's how I took it. His body language was pretty much like, the optimistic type of him. I don't know if it's a right thing to do to pull out a big trade. I don't think that this Boston Bruins team can make a deep run, even if they make the playoffs. I think they're probably still a one and done team just by the way they've been playing all season. There's no consistency. And when you match up against teams that are way better than you, you get outclassed, often giving up more than 5 goals, which is sad. So I would much rather them stand firm, a soft sell. We're going to talk about so many people like Coyle and Frederick and so on. Those are the players that I would like to move on from. Not only do you create cap space, but you also create roster spots for possibly, air quotes, possibly some younger players in Providence. But I wouldn't want this team to blow it up like so many out there want them to do, because I don't see them getting that far in the postseason if they make it. So you're going to have close to $30 million in salary cap space, I believe, next season, 28, 25 or 30. So I would go into the draft. We are going in the first round, and load up on prospects if you can. If Coyle needs to go, just shits and giggles, right? The Washington Capitals need a third line center, and Stephen Wino from the Capitals, beat writer, he's always been saying they definitely need somebody. So if Coyle was somebody for that, a second or third round pick, I would do in a heartbeat. And Frederick, obviously, I know so many people are going to agree with me, but I still think an NHL team out there that is currently in the playoff picture is going to overpay for a player like him, and possibly even overpay as much as a first round pick. I would take that. I am not interested. If I was the general manager, I am not interested at this point in taking players back and salary back, because what that does, in my opinion, is it's setting them up for less of what they can do in the off season to build for next season. So I'm just not a blow it up guy. I'm sorry, folks. I know so many people out there sell this, sell that, sell that. You can't blow a team up like this, because of the fact is that you do have cornerstones in this organization that you can build on. You just have to find the right pieces and adequately move forward with them. Long-winded, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the extensions and McAvoy first. So when you look at the way that he answered the McAvoy questions, his body language, the words he used, his tone, you can tell that he's really frustrated with all the questions about the McAvoy injury during the Four Nations. He's obviously not going to give the reporters what they want. What they want is for him to bash out with Handel, and Sweeney's just not going to do that. So he keeps saying, we're really happy with how the doctors are treating him here, and he's getting the care that he needs now, and that's the most important thing. This is classic GM talk, right? And then later in the presser, when he's asked about extensions and stuff, he basically says that outside of Marchand, there's not going to be any more extension talks during the season. That's basically what he's saying. So if outside of Marchand, I wouldn't expect to see any sort of extension talk until the end of the season. So that's kind of good, in my opinion, because then he can kind of focus on how the team is going to get better moving forward, give himself a clear picture in the offseason of who needs to be here, who wants to be here, and who needs to be moved. In terms of the comments about the deadline, I was actually pleasantly surprised, because, yes, they are usually aggressive at the deadline. And I'm going to read off a couple stats here in a second. But when he said it may plant a seed for the draft and not being as aggressive as he usually is, and be more cautious, and like these are not words that Don Sweeney uses in relation to the deadline. So it's going to be a very different deadline compared to the last few years that the Bruins have had. But I'm really looking forward to it because I feel like that means they're not moving any sort of future compensation. So like draft picks for one, I don't see them moving anything like that. Now whether or not they get draft picks back, that's going to be determined based on how the league values certain people. But the amount of draft picks that have already been thrown around, people are throwing them around like candy. Like I think the Bruins are going to get at least one draft pick back no matter what the deal is. So I'm hoping they can replenish that second. That's the one that's really kicking me right now. Hold on to their first. If they can get another first, obviously that's amazing, but I'm not gonna hold my breath there. But if you go back to 2019, so February of 2019, Charlie Coyle, Marcus Johansson, he gives up 3 draft picks to get 2 of those guys. He gets Andre Kasha in 2020, gives up a first round pick. And then just give me 1 second. Nick Ritchie again in 2020. Mike Riley for a 3rd round pick. Taylor Hall, Curtis Lazar for a 2nd round pick.
That was good.
That was good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hampus Lindholm for a 1st and 2 seconds.
That was good.
That was good.
Josh Brown for Senyshyn and a 5th.
No.
Well, it was to get that 2015 freaking blunder off the team.
Really though. And then so that was 2022 was the Senyshyn deal. And I'm only looking at deadline deals here, by the way. And I'm only saying the ones that mean anything. Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway was 2023. He gave up a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 5th.
Nope. Not good.
We got that
first back, but
March of 2023, Tyler Bertuzzi for a 1st and a 4th.
Nope.
And then 2024 was the Patrick Maroon deal for a 6th. Like, as you can see, all of these deadline deals there's picks going out and there's veterans coming in. And this is going to be the first year. I only went back 2019 because we have to stay on some sort of schedule here. This is going to be the first year since at least 2019 that they're not buying on a deadline. And it's going to be very, very interesting to watch how this unfolds because they do have pieces that other teams are going to covet. And obviously we can tell that teams like Florida and New York and Colorado and Carolina, these teams are being aggressive. So other teams are going to want to keep up and these teams are going to want to keep on the gas pedal. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can get in return for some of these players that will be moved out the door. There is no doubt that someone is going out the door. But it's going to be a very refreshing experience to watch the Bruins sell at the deadline and possibly a humbling experience for those fans that are really not used to this.
Hey, to touch on the Sweeney talks before we move on, because I know we have a lot to go. I do want to bring up, because you brought up Pat Maroon, and that just put a light bulb above my head. Going back to the McAvoy situation at Four Nations and that injury and the infection. It's very weird because Team USA's doctors are the Minnesota Wild. Okay. So do you remember when the Bruins made the trade for Pat Maroon? And it took him so long to get onto the ice.
Yeah.
Well, guess who did that procedure? Or guess who looked at him and evaluated him and said he's a healthy player and can be traded? The Minnesota Wild doctor. Maybe, just maybe, Sweeney is holding back a lot of frustrations that he wants to say because of that in the past, and it happened to us a second Bruin. Right. I'm spitballing on that, obviously, but still, it's something that people should talk about because that's pretty serious. If you're doing stuff like that and you're moving players that you're saying are healthy and you actually get them and they're not.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying to start an investigation, but I definitely at least consider it because, like, Maroon, now McAvoy, not handling it properly, that's an issue.
And that's only the Bruins side. Like, you can probably go back and look at what Minnesota's done over the years to other teams in those aspects as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's just so interesting, man. Let's talk about Morgan Geekie. He's on the chopping block for the deadline. A lot of people are saying he might be getting traded, this, that, whatever. Back last Saturday, after the game against the Ducks, he was asked about his name popping up in trade rumors, and he said, quote, I mean, I want to be a Bruin. I'd love to be a Bruin as long as I can be. It's not up to me. I'm just going to go out there and play. I love every guy in here, everything about the organization, the culture. That's from Morgan Geekie. Love hearing that. Okay. That's a guy that I don't think they should trade. But that's my personal opinion. I'm still on the opinion of keep Geekie around. You know, he can play up and down the lineup. You need a little bit more of that. I like hearing that from a guy like him. A guy who's having the season of his career, is about to have his 20th goal of the season coming up soon. Maybe even today. I don't know. Geekie's had a great season. He's had a great past 2-3 months. Hearing that is only encouraging, right, Mark?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It speaks volumes to the guys in the room that he wants to continue to work with. And I'm totally for that. I love when you hear stuff like that. He's not disgruntled about hearing the rumors. He just plain out says, I like Boston. I like being here. And hopefully a deal can happen. But if if another NHL team out there is calling Don Sweeney and going to overpay for him, then, you know, if you can get good draft capital for him, you do it in a heartbeat, because this team desperately needs to replenish the prospect pool moving forward. And I think that is going to be the biggest point of success moving forward in year 2 and 3 coming up, is how this organization drafts, develops, and so on. And I think that's going to be a big piece of moving forward for success. I'm sorry for babbling my words here. But me personally, I would keep him just because we know that he can put the puck in the net. We know that he can grind in the dirty areas. Does he have slow starts to seasons? Yes. But you know, what we're seeing right now is something really good. And I think the more he plays and the more he plays well, the evaluators up above are constantly thinking about that. So I like him. I like the way he's played. And the fact is that Pastrnak is comfortable with him playing there.
Right.
You know, don't take that player out of that equation. You did it already with Todd Bertuzzi. Not Todd Bertuzzi, Tyler. You had him. He worked really well with Pastrnak. You took him out. Now Geekie's really getting some really good chemistry with Pastrnak. I don't think you should take that guy out either. I also don't think that Geekie is legitimately, air quotes, a top 6 forward. But when you put him in roles like that, he excels. Again, and I know I'm probably pissing people off, but he just reminds me of the now Danton Heinen, the guy that could go up and down the lineup and produce points consecutively.
There's a great saying, and I've said this many times on this podcast before. I've said this many times on my channel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you're David Pastrnak, you're saying probably if I'm Pastrnak, I'm saying to Sweeney, don't trade this guy. I like playing with him. I'm back to what I should have been doing last year because of the fact I have a consistent line with me. I mean, last year Pastrnak was being passed around a lot. He had Zacha, but his other winger or his center or whatever they were doing was too many different people. It was Heinen for a bit. It was Geekie. It was DeBrusk. It was Van Riemsdyk. It was Beecher for like a hot minute. It was so many people. Now you have a consistent top line, right? Don't give the Bruins fans something to cheer for, because this team is not great, obviously. Give them something to look forward to when watching this team every night, of that top line excelling. Pastrnak is the hottest player in the NHL. Zacha's producing good numbers right now on the assist side. Geekie is just a good overall power forward to have there, and he scores a lot too. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right, David?
I'm actually going to disagree. I'm of the mindset that they should let him go to the highest bidder. There's going to be a bidder, no matter what. Somebody is going to someone's gonna ask about him no matter what they're asking. But to me, he's gone to the highest bidder. The reason behind that is if you can play Morgan Geekie on your top line and get this kind of production when he's playing with Zacha and Pasternak, you can get someone else. Morgan Geekie is a third liner, and he's playing up on the first line, and he's playing like a first liner right now. Don't get me wrong. But if you can get a draft pick for him and then in the offseason either bring up one of the kids or sign someone to a contract less than what he's going to get and get the same production, why not? I know, and fans are going to hate it because they're going to say, nobody's going to be able to take his spot and stuff like that. But at the start of the year, did we really think that Morgan Geekie was going to be this guy? So, there's going to be a price tag on him, and I think a team is going to meet it. And I want to see him traded for those future assets because I do believe that we can easily replace him. I think he's a very replaceable player. I don't think it's so much that, and don't get me wrong, Morgan Geekie's a great player, he's a great guy, but it's not so much that he's irreplaceable. It's just they need to find someone who has that same kind of chemistry and plays that similar type of game so they can get him in and kind of fill that hole. So that's where my mind is when it comes to Geekie. And I think I could be wrong on this because I'm not obviously a professional or anything, but considering the fact that he's an RFA versus a UFA, I think the price tag might be a little bit higher.
You're right. You're right because you have RFA. For those who don't know what that means, it pretty much means that the team who has the player gets first dibs. It's pretty much to dumb it down. That's what it means. You have the first dibs on signing the guy. Okay. As much as you're right, to me, he is replaceable. I'm not denying that, but to me, right now, I still am very apprehensive about trading him. I'm very apprehensive because now, let's say hypothetically, we do move Morgan Geekie and David Pastrnak falls off the face of the earth, and you go, oh, we had something here. And we threw it away for no reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's why I'm kind of apprehensive about it. Because, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The other thing I'm constantly thinking about is Geekie's how he's consecutively playing and producing points and playing well. And then you take him out of that scenario and you sign like a free agent to like fill the void where he left. Now I'm thinking like Zadorov and Elias Lindholm. Now these guys are at a new location. They moved their family. They're adjusting. They're probably not going to have a great year, just like those two are not, which I do expect both of them to have better years next year. So now you already have a player that's producing. Why not keep him involved? Why take the risk? And, we're just spitballing here, obviously, but that's the way I would do it. If you have somebody right now that's producing and works well with the team, keep them around if you want. Okay. But again, on the other side of that coin, if somebody's willing to overpay for them, you absolutely have to move them.
So that's what I was just about to ask you guys, actually. So let's just say that there's no players coming back because he's on I think it's $2 million contract. Right. So maybe there'll be some filler salaries, but let's make the draft picks the main return for Geekie right now. At what point do you guys cut it off? Obviously, if someone's willing to pay a first rounder, you're willing to give them up, right?
Yeah.
Second?
No.
Okay. Mark?
It's real quick. It's a seller's market. Sell high. Sell high, and if you can't sell high, keep them. That's my thoughts on it. If you can't get a first round pick in this market, in this market with the way that draft picks are being thrown around, as we've said on this show today, draft picks are being thrown around crazy. You can't get a first round pick for a guy who scored 19 goals in back-to-back seasons. No.
Mark, you have the same mindset. Is it first or bust?
Yeah, I don't know. I would take a second.
Yeah, okay.
I would take a second too, or first. Whoever's going to pay that price, obviously. Yeah. I think it's real important that we build that prospect pool up.
I'd take a second if another pick was in there, like a 6th or a 7th.
I gotcha. Yeah.
If it's a first alone, I'll take it. But if it's a second, there has to be something else. Whether it's a no, not a prospect. It would have to be like a 6th or a 7th round pick. It would have to be for me. That's me saying. I don't know. You guys can disagree. I'll probably get a lot of shit on the internet. That's fine. Second and like a 6th or a 7th or a 1st, fine. I'm fine with that. If it's not that, keep him. It's not worth it. Just re-sign the guy at that point.
Sam, point to the doll where the internet hurt you.
Where's my YouTube? Where's my YouTube? Yeah. So we'll see. Anyway, we'll talk more about the deadline coming up during the trade deadline segment. Let's talk about the Four Nations. We were not live last week, so we didn't have a chance to talk about the Four Nations. David, congratulations on your championship victory against the U.S.
I'm just gonna put my crown on.
Yeah, congratulations. McJesus comes through in OT. Austin Matthews, please do not actually continue to do that for the Leafs, not for Team USA, and leave the best player in the world open in the slot. Great job. 3-2 in overtime. Canada beats the U.S. in the championship. David, congratulations, man. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to put the proverbial crown on here. I think what was even like, again, I said at the start of the show, it was really weird to cheer for Mitch Marner, but man, he had a hell of a game in that final. And it was such a classic experience to watch Austin Matthews miss the net in overtime. Like it was exactly what you would expect out of like a Leafs player when the game's on the line, he just can't put it away. But of all the people, and again, it's Austin Matthews who's supposed to be like this king in Toronto right now. Of all the people to leave wide open in front of the net, you leave Connor McJesus open in front of the net. And it's just like it was such a storybook ending. Like this big bad team beat you in the round robin, and then you come back and it's the savior of hockey in Canada that puts it away in overtime. Like it couldn't have gone any better, man. The NHL did an excellent job with this. I would like to see it extended a little bit. Obviously, that would probably mean a longer layoff, but rather than 4 teams, have it at like 8 teams or 6 teams, or just get more teams involved. Like we had talked about, like Czechia and a couple other teams that we spoke about that could fill in there as well. So, yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. But for the first go around, this was an incredible experience for the fans and for everyone involved. I think they put out the numbers that it was like one of the most watched hockey games of all time. It was just and one thing that I really noticed is when you got best on best like that, the speed of the game is fucking insane. Like it was incredible to watch. Like that was just tape to tape hockey all the way around. And it was just a lot of fun. And credit to, sorry if I miss anyone here, but it was, we had Parker, Neil, who were the other 2?
Yes.
Julia.
So these were the guys, these are the folks that were at the games for the Four Nations tournament. So Parker was at the entirety of the Montreal section of the tournament. Jason Cook was at the Canada-Finland game. Julia Simone was at the Sweden-USA game, which, by the way, good luck to her in all of her future endeavors. She left BNG earlier on in the week, so congratulations to her on her, and we wish her nothing but the best. And Neil Simmons was at the championship game on February 20th. So great representation all around at BNG for that entire tournament. That was great.
Oh, extremely proud of everybody that put forth their time to be there. As an accredited sports media company, we got exclusive access, and I was, and not to take away from the whole group, but what Parker did up in Montreal was just really, really cool, and it brought us, I believe, to a higher level of expectations when you want quality video and good hockey talk. So we're just climbing the ladder of Boston sports media here, and I love every step that we're taking, and I'm truly, truly proud of everybody that's pulling the rope here. It's not just me; it's everybody else here that's doing a lot of amazing work, and hopefully we get a lot of more amazing people to join us in the future as content creators covering this Boston Bruins organization.
Absolutely. They were screaming outside of my window. Sorry for the random chat change. People are screaming outside my window. I'm not sure what the hell's going on out there. I know it's probably chaotic.
College life.
College life. I don't know. There might be a fight. I don't know what's going on. I want to read this stat. And I put this out. And I saw this off of Braylon Breeze's X. We did some great like announcers, like TV stat stuff. ESPN for the championship game had 9.2 million viewers in the United States, which is the highest watched non-Olympic hockey game in U.S. history.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Sportsnet and TVA Sports up in Canada had 6.9 million viewers, which totaled out to 16.1 million viewers in North America. This is also the first time that a U.S. versus Canada game had more American than Canadian viewers in North America.
Wow.
That's wild. That is wild to me.
A lot more too, like 3 million more.
2.3 more American than Canadian viewers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just an insane stat. That stat alone just is a hats off to the NHL on putting together hell of a tournament. My mom actually sent me something funny, and it was the NBA versus the NHL's All-Star competition. The NBA having like a glorified skills competition, and the NHL was like, I will have a random exhibition and I will die for my country. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
The NHL got it right, and a lot of people had eyes on hockey for the first time, and they were hooked. So hats off to the NHL and putting together a hell of a tournament. Go ahead.
Do you guys know like why Minnesota's doctors were the doctors in charge?
Bill Guerin is the GM of the Minnesota Wild, and he chose his own medical staff to be the U.S. medical staff.
So he was the GM of the U.S. team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you.
That's
okay,
why.
Cool.
Yeah.
I do want to throw a little bit of shade here to my Canadian buddy right here. I still believe that there was too many men on the ice at the end of that game.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I'm a patient person. We're under a year to go to the Olympics, so I believe that the Team USA would be much more prepared for that tournament after Four Nations lost to Canada. So I fully intend to wear my proverbial crown in less than a year. So get the bets going, boys. Let's go.
How many players are allowed on the ice?
5.
How many players does Canada have out there?
6.
No. 8. With possession near the bench. And it was
another thing I want to bring up about Four Nations. I know, but it's also, it drives me nuts in college games, American Hockey League games, and NHL games. If you are a linesman and you're calling the icing, please get to the play. Don't be behind it, because there was one icing late in that game where it was pretty much a tie. If not, the U.S. beat the player. But guess where the freaking linesman was? Behind the play.
They're way up back in Narnia.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
I hate that. It's
crazy.
I digress.
Well, I know, Dave, we're being salty, but it is what it is, okay?
Got to play to the whistle.
Yeah.
And for now, I'll just say check the scoreboard.
Oh, scoreboard. Yeah.
Well, we have a new opening for a host. No, I'm just kidding.
I like host
to get rid of him.
Get out. Let's talk about the injuries and transactions that have happened in the past few days. So, Oliver Wahlstrom was placed on waivers on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, and he cleared and was sent to the American Hockey League along with Michael Callahan and Riley Tufte. Now, Callahan surprised me. Okay, I didn't expect that, because I know he played the amount of games, to not need waivers or whatever. But now if he were to play one more, he'd require waivers before being sent down to the AHL. I get it, but man, he didn't deserve that. He actually was looking pretty decent with the NHL squad. So But he's back in the AHL and he played last night. So did Tufte and so did Wallstrom. They both scored, by the way, which is weird. Tufte scored 2, actually. It was just, kind of odd. And then they called up Jeffrey Viel, Georgi Merkulov, and Ian Mitchell from Providence. I thought Merkulov had a good game yesterday. I thought Viel had a decent game. Ian Mitchell, I didn't really see a ton. Like, I literally did not see him a ton at all. Especially down the stretch, I mainly saw Wotherspoon, Zadorov, Carlo, Peak, and Lohrei. I did not see much of Ian Mitchell. So, and then, of course, Patra. Who the hell is the Islanders' backup goalie opening up the door, and Patra gets freaking cross-checked right into the corner of the. It was one of the most gruesome things ever. And then Patra's helped off, and then he somehow plays yesterday. I'm not even sure how. And then Marchand gets hurt, and then Frederick's hurt, and I'm like, dude, the injury bug is hitting the Bruins at the worst time, right? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, in a season like this, it's actually not bad time to have it happen because we don't even know if the Bruins are going to make the playoffs or not. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But as in Ian Mitchell, I like Ian Mitchell as an AHL player down in Providence because he quarterbacks power play, does really good down there, real steady. At the NHL level, I have a hard time finding out where he fits, particularly the last game. Jeffrey Viel, just a hard-nosed grinder type player that I think any NHL team that's currently in the playoffs would want to add to their roster for that grit factor and that nastiness. And obviously, Georgi Merkulov has been playing really well down in Providence, finally crosses the threshold of getting an NHL recall. But to be honest with you, I think that all 3 of these players were up for one purpose, and that was to showcase for a trade. In some kind of package. I'm not saying 1-for-1 and so on. The Merkulov thing, we talked about it before the show started. And the reason why I think that he's being showcased is the fact is that he wasn't brought up when he was really hot in those streaks and in that time that he played really well. And everybody was just like, oh, when is this kid going to get up? When is he getting up? Mark Diva posting long overdue recall coming. You know what I mean? It's just nobody really knew what was going on while this player was down in Providence continuing to be a point per game player. So all of a sudden, with a week to go in the trade deadline, these 3 players are up in the NHL level and playing. So yes, Merkulov, I think Merkulov had his best NHL game yesterday.
Absolutely.
And that is that supersedes the 4 cups of coffee games he had last year while Patra was, or was it the year before? I'm not sure. While Patra was at the World Juniors. I didn't think that he produced great at all in those 4 games. This game, much more noticeable with his passing, his vision, and I mean he's not the fastest player, but he makes impacts. So I could honestly think that, and I tweeted it out, and I'm going to stand by it. I kind of think that he's getting shopped, whether it be in a package, because I think that they want to move him now because I think there might be a little verbiage that he's not happy with the way he's being utilized in the organization, and that might say to the Boston organization that we need to get something for him now before he walks. Because I honestly, at this point, I don't think he's resigning. Even regardless if he's RFA, arbitration rights, whatever, I think he's not going to be with this organization if he doesn't get consistent NHL time.
It would suck too, because let's take a look at Merkulov's stats, right? So thank you to Parker for making this graphic, by the way. Let's take a look at the last 3 seasons for Georgi Merkulov, right? 22-23 in 67 games played, 24 goals, 31 assists for 55 points in 67 games. Last season, 30 goals, 35 assists for 65 points in 67 games. Almost a point a game all season long for Merkulov. Kind of the same this year. 13 goals, 31 assists for 44 points in 47 games. Almost a point a game on average for Merkulov, right? This is a guy that should be in the NHL full-time by now at this point, especially after last season. And the refusal to call him up is honestly mind-boggling. I don't know. David, do you want to chime in on that and why Merkulov might not be getting an NHL shot?
It's hard to say. It seems like the Bruins don't like to play the young guys. But you would think for a guy that, if you look at those numbers, like you're close to a point a game in some of those seasons. So you would think that he would get a shot here somewhere. But hopefully, I hope Merck sticks around. I hope he's here past the deadline and that he re-signs next season. But I'm assuming the way this is going to work is that they're going to retool at the deadline, and then these young guys are going to get a bit more run after deadline to showcase what they have moving into next season, get some chemistry with the guys that 100% are going to be here next year, and kind of move it from there. Ian Mitchell, who is another one of the guys that the Bruins got in a trade June 26, 2023 for Nick Foligno and Taylor Hall. He's another guy being brought up, young kid. Going to be showcased. I don't know if there's much out there for him or if they're just kind of getting his feet wet to see what he's got. But, if someone comes calling, they're willing to give up some sort of asset for him. Why not? In terms of the waivers, again, going back to the Facebook cesspool, Wahlstrom, they called Oliver Wahlstrom another example of mismanagement. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, the only mismanagement with Wahlstrom was that the experiment lasted a little bit too long. But you basically picked him up for nothing, one of those high potential, low floor type of guys. Bring him in, see where he fits. The experiment shouldn't have lasted as long as it did, but to call it mismanagement is just ridiculous. Michael Callahan got sent down. He's another guy that was traded to the Bruins on kind of a it was kind of a deadline deal. It was in February of 2022 for a 7th in 2024. So they gave up a future asset to bring in the rights to Callahan back in 2022. I think he looked serviceable with the Bruins. I don't know if he's going to stick full time, but I could see him being the 7th defenseman next year if Wotherspoon moves on and they don't bring anyone in to fill that. I could see there being a bit of a battle for that, but I could see him winning that one.
I'm going to say this. If Wotherspoon moves on, Callahan's up.
Yeah, I think so.
Callahan, I think, already outplayed Wotherspoon when it comes to defensive defensemen. Callahan already beat Wotherspoon out in that aspect, which is why, kind of shifting gears to the NHL trade deadline. We're actually going to preview the deadline here coming up here in this segment of the show. So Parker and I put together what we're going to call the BNG hot stove. This is who we think are getting moved at the trade deadline, who are most likely to be moved at the trade deadline. So we kind of split it up from Bruins and then the rest of the league. The Bruins board, let's take a look. So this is our hot stove. Trent Frederick's number 1. Justin Brazeau is number 2. Morgan Geekie's number 3. Brandon Carlo is number 4. I have a sneaking suspicion somebody might want to trade for him. Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Georgi Merkulov, now that this whole rumor and speculation coming out. And I put Parker Wotherspoon's name on this list. I tweeted out a few days ago, and it got a lot of responses over on my X, that Wotherspoon could be an option for a team looking for a defenseman down the stretch in a team that's trying to make a push for the playoffs. I could see somebody making a push for Wotherspoon for like a 5th or a 6th round pick. I could totally see that. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that is something that the Bruins could do. Now, I know defensemen are kind of a premium right now. Lindholm and McAvoy are out. I understand. But think about it. Somebody like the Capitals, for example, or somebody like the Jets, looking for a depth defenseman who has NHL experience, Parker Wotherspoon is just that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Any team that is in the playoff picture right now that wants to load up, especially defensively, if you can get more depth for a run, a guy like Parker Wotherspoon is going to fit in your lineup pretty well. He's done. I mean, he's no Bobby Orr or anything like that, but what he is he fits the role. When he gets time, he puts in a really good effort, and when he needs to sit, he's not a sulker. He's going to get another opportunity sooner or later. So he's the type of player that I would like to see. You know, if he needs to get more consistent NHL time, absolutely, I could see a team picking him up and being a good asset for them. But I also see him as a value here. You know, as a seventh rotating defenseman.
I see that as well. David?
Yeah, I think Mark hit it on the spot there in terms of, you know, he comes in when he's needed, but he's okay with sitting out when he's not needed or when they need him to sit out a game. It's really good to have low-level players that understand the rules. There's nothing worse than bringing in a guy that is supposed to be, you know, the 13th forward or the 7th defenseman, but he comes in with the attitude that he's more than that. And I'm not so much saying that people should, you know, not aspire to be better, but it's good to have these guys at the lower part of your roster that can come in and, you know, save you from that. So, a guy like Wotherspoon, I feel like he can be had for basically nothing. Like if you're giving any sort of asset, I think the Bruins are willing to listen to that offer. Did you guys want to get into the rest of the names? Just go for it, or are we going to do one by one here?
Let's talk about the rest of the names on this list. We can go up the list from 8 to 1. We've already talked about Wotherspoon. Actually, you know what? I'm going to play a little game. Let's play a little game. It's called the Hot Stove Trade Bait. Trade or no trade. The 8 names on this list, we're going to start at Wotherspoon. It's not should they, it's will they. Do you think the Bruins will trade Wotherspoon? Mark?
Yes, I do think so.
David?
I don't, but I think it's because nobody's going to come with an offer.
That's very fair. I don't think they're going to, but I tossed out the name just saying they could. You know?
The only could I just I want to dovetail on that. Just because Parker Wotherspoon, he's a type of player that Michael Callahan could also replace if he's traded. You know what I mean? If Wotherspoon needs to be moved, a guy like Callahan pretty much is like the same player. He's going to be a 7th rotating D moving forward. So,
absolutely. All right, Georgi Merkulov. Mark?
I am on him being in a package. I don't see the two sides, Bruins management and the player, agreeing on anything just because of the fact is that this player hasn't been utilized better in the NHL with the 3 years that he's played in the American Hockey League and being close to a point per game player and as a career AHLer. So I don't know. I kind of think that maybe this player and his agent see a better path to the NHL and a consistent path to the NHL elsewhere.
David?
Before I get to whether or not they're going to trade him, Merkulov is kind of like, or Kenny Kaminsky is kind of like Voldemort. It's like when you speak his name, he appears. Every time Merkulov's name gets brought up, you see Kenny Kaminsky comment in the chat. And it's like, oh, there he is. I knew he was going to be there somewhere. Kenny made a great point a little above where he said that Russian reports came out earlier this year that CSKA Moscow had talked to a few NHL/AHLers and Merk was on that list. So for me, I think it boils down to whether or not he intends to play in the NHL and where he is in terms of what his expected role is. We don't know. Like, this could be all a plan between him, his agent, and Don Sweeney to stay in the minors like this. He could be completely caught off guard with how long it's taken to get up and get a consistent role. Or he could be like, you know what, I'm going to play it this year, and then I'm going back to Russia. Me and Kenny had a conversation about this a while ago. The biggest difference between a lot of these Russian guys who usually stay over playing the KHL when they're younger, Merk came over and went to college in the States. So he's not your classic Russian case of coming over, trying it out, and going back. So the fact that he played college in the States it makes it a little bit of a different scenario. for the return to Russia. So that'll be interesting. I think he will have trade value if GMs know that he's going to stay in the NHL. But that's kind of where it has to stop, because I don't think we know where his head's at right now. He doesn't get talked to a lot after games. I don't know if there's ever been a time where a reporter's asked him like what his opinion is and things like that. So it's really hard to tell. But if he does intend to play in the NHL next year, I could see him being a part of a package, like Mark said. I could also see him going for just like a single draft pick if the Bruins just want to get the headache over with, if that's what's going on right now. But the other side of it is Don Sweeney in that presser said that they don't really want to give up future assets, for lack of a better term. And in my opinion, Georgi Merkulov would count as one of those future assets. So I think this is the one that I'm most 50-50 on when it comes to this trade deadline.
100%. Next name, Charlie Coyle. Do you think they'll move Coyle, Mark?
I mean, if they have the opportunity to, I would in a heartbeat. I like Charlie Coyle. I like what he's done as he returned home to New England and being a Boston Bruin, as he was a fan as a child. It's a great little story and everything. But with 1 year left, I gravitate to the Washington Capitals and their need for a third line center. And I think that he would be a great fit there. And also it'd be a good chance for Charlie to possibly jump on a winning train because Washington is really good this year and poised to make a long run. So I think this would be a great spot for him. And also if he's approached to waive any of his no movement or no trade, whatever it is, and say that the Capitals are, Washington really isn't that far away from Boston. And if he wanted to go and fulfill that 1 year while you're negotiating at longer term with the Caps, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know. I just I see availability in the roster and the cap moving forward. If we get $5 million off the cap, now you're looking at $35 million we could potentially have during the offseason to really build something special. Maybe not for next season, but the year after. I'm really targeting that year after to be, one that you could make a cup run if you put the right pieces together, obviously.
Right. David?
Yeah, the no trade clause makes things a little bit tough because is it an 8 team? How many? No, it's 8, right?
Yeah. So Coyle has a 8-team no trade.
Right.
And he also has a full no move as well. So if you were to waive it, he still has an 8-team no trade on top of that as well.
I'm wondering if his 8-team no trade is just like West Coast teams. Like he just doesn't want to go back to the West Coast. But if he's asked to move, then obviously the Bruins have gotten a deal that they're comfortable with. I don't know what his value is right now. There's a lot of people in the chat and then on Twitter and everywhere else that I've looked at say, oh my God, get rid of Coyle. I can't watch this anymore. But what you're not seeing is that you're not going to get what you think you're going to get for him if that's how you feel about him. Because you have to think you're trading him to yourself. So if you don't like him, the guy you're trading him to doesn't like him either. Obviously, there might be a little bit of that, we think we know what he could be and stuff like that. But it's really hard to judge what a trade value is based on how you feel about someone. Back in January, Chris Johnston had the Leafs linked to Charlie Coyle. So that'd be interesting. I don't know how Chris feels 2 months later, but that would be an interesting little trade partner if he's willing to move to the Leafs. And I think Charlie's a great dude. Mark, you probably know him better than I would. I'm sure you spoke to him in person before, but that could be an interesting little, homegrown turn heel if he goes to the Leafs. So I think it's an interesting storyline to watch because if Charlie Coyle meets his potential, there's a lot of teams that could use him, but it's just a matter of what Charlie Coyle are you getting is the biggest question mark. In terms of if I think he'll be traded, I'm going to say no, because again, I don't think he's going to waive the no trade clause to move west. And I don't know I don't think they're going to get the value that they're expecting for Coyle. So I think they'll move into the offseason and then revisit the trade market at that point.
I would like to point out that my college roommate has actually met Charlie Coyle, so he would actually be heartbroken if the Bruins move him because that picture that he has would mean nothing to him anymore. So
is that Flood?
That's Floodstar.
Yeah, this is the guy that wears a freaking New York Rangers jersey to a Four Nations freaking USA thing.
It's red, white, and blue. That's why he wore it.
Which I think actually cursed them.
Oh, you're gonna blame Grant? All right, I'll tell him you said that.
No, I love Grant. He's a good kid.
Next name on this list. This is a big one. Brad Marchand. Mark, do you think they're actually gonna do it and move Marchand?
Obviously, this is on the player. The player's got to make the choice if he wants to move. And if he does want to move to a team that he thinks is going to be a winner, yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. I hate to say it. I know he's the captain and he's been with this team for so many years and should retire a Bruin. But if somebody is calling with a first round and a prospect, I'm not talking about a prospect, because we need players now and prospects. We don't need players like if you're trading Brad Marchand, I don't want a pick. I want a first round pick, but I don't want another pick because you don't know when you're going to get that player. So I want a high end prospect now to get into the system as soon as possible for a player like Marchand. We really didn't talk about it much, but since we're on the Marchand thing, I kind of believe that he's not as hurt as we all think he is. I think that it was a precautionary thing that he got taken out of yesterday's game. Yeah, it looked a lot worse, but I think he was. I mean, the whole unlikely from the Bruins was kind of like, oh, well, he could come back and he couldn't. It wasn't a definite, no, he's out. So if he had a concussion, the Bruins would have sent out an email and a notification that he is definitely out for the game, and that didn't happen.
David?
Yeah. One thing, I can't wait for the deadline to be over so we can stop talking about Marchand because of his legacy with the Bruins, and I don't like the idea of trading him. However, I don't think he's going to be traded. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger. I think there's too much nostalgia that goes along with it. Again, I'm saying what I think is going to happen, not what I want to happen. I would love to see him moved again to the highest bidder. If he wanted to come back in the offseason, he has full reign to do that. But, again, the NHL, it's a business, man. And sometimes you gotta experience heartbreak to move forward. So I would love to see him moved at the deadline to the highest bidder. Hopefully someone that's out of the division. He would be an interesting one to go to the Leafs. The thing with Marchand is based on the way that Sweeney talks about him, I think they're going to do right by him. So I think he's only going to – it's almost like he has a full no movement clause without having a full no movement clause. So they're only going to move him if he wants to be moved. And I think they're only going to move him to a place that he wants to be moved. So it'll be interesting to follow this storyline leading up to Friday. But I think he's going to stay, but I would like to see him moved.
I don't think they're going to trade him. And I don't want them to trade him either. So that's my opinion. Brandon Carlo. I'm going to say no. Mark?
Again, if another team comes calling, I think that he could garner a first or a second. Call me crazy. But there is a lot of teams out there that would love to have a player like Brandon Carlo just because of how he is in the room with other players. He's also a union rep, so he knows he's very well spoken about league wide. So he would be very accepted into any lineup in the 31 other teams. Again, when you're trying to replenish the prospect pool, if you can get good high draft capital for him, I would move him. Just because of the fact is that where we are right now in the season and just outside of the playoff picture, yeah, you might be able to address his another player in free agency. I'm sorry, I'm babbling my words, but I don't know. Go ahead,
David.
The Bruins really like Brandon Carlo, so I think they'd have to be blown away to move him. He's been pretty, like, I know that his numbers aren't great, but he's been a very solid player for the Bruins over his career. He's had a little bit of trouble with concussions and stuff like that, but I don't feel that he's been overly injured. He's been pretty solid on the back line. You kind of know what they expect with him at this point. A player like that is going to have value to other teams as well. And you could get into a point where other teams are making moves and a team gets desperate and they're like, you know what, we're just going to give you whatever you want to get him in the building. He could be one of those guys, assuming the Bruins are shopping him. I don't think he's going to be traded, but if a team gets desperate, I could see them overpaying for a guy like Carlo.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to be shopping him either. All right, Morgan Geekie. Now, I'm not asking if you think they should. I'm asking if you think they will. Do you think they will actually move Morgan Geekie? Mark?
No, I don't.
No. David?
I do. I think the thing like where Don Sweeney talked about not giving up future assets and not re-signing. I know that I don't know if he can technically even re-sign right now, but the fact that they're not going to talk extensions with anyone outside Marchand until the offseason, I really do think that Geekie's going to be gone. And as long as they go to the highest bidder, then I'm cool with it. But I do believe that Morgan Geekie is going to be traded. Yes.
I'm going to say no. I think they're going to shop him, see what people think, but I think they're going to be hesitant. I think they're going to be apprehensive, and they're not going to pull the trigger on Geekie. That's my thoughts. Justin Brazeau, I'm going to say yes. That's my first definitive yes of the day. Yes, I think they are going to trade Justin Brazeau. Mark?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the feeling too, just by the way he's producing. But also he's not producing on a team that's really not producing. So, when the team was playing well, you get the best out of Justin Brazeau. I'm on the fence, to be honest with you, on this one, because the fact is that there's nothing behind Justin right now in the developing depths that are going to replace a big man like him that can, obviously, he's a slow skater and so on, but that can get to the net like he can and create havoc around the goal. So yeah, I'd like to see him stay because the cap's going up, and if he gets like $1 million deal for 2 years, that's actually really good value. And you continue to evaluate him, for another 2-year deal in the future as he gets better. But like I said, I'm on the fence with Justin just because of the fact is that we don't have any of those big players like down in Providence right now that can get to the net and just cause that havoc. I mean, you do have the toughies and so on and blah, 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 but who do you think is better right now? Do you think like Max Jones and Riley Tufte are better players than Justin Brazeau right now?
No.
I don't think so.
Absolutely not. I don't want them to, but I think they will. David?
I don't know what kind of value he has, and I feel like he's the biggest question mark for me on this board that you have here. Is that I don't know what a reasonable offer would look like if the team came calling about Justin Brazeau. I feel really good for the kid. He had a tough start to get into the league. He spent a lot of time in the minors, the ECHL, AHL. But then he's really made a name for himself here in Boston, and I think that's a really cool experience for him. And if he does get more than market value in the offseason, then it feels good to see a guy develop like that. He's big. Bruins love their big dudes, forwards and defensemen. He has gotten faster on the ice, and he looks more comfortable the more the season goes. He was held out last night, right? He didn't play last night?
He didn't play yesterday.
Did he? Was he held out the previous game, or did he play? Do you know?
He played Thursday.
Okay. And I'm very interested to see how much he plays leading up to the deadline, because I think that could be another indication of how they feel about him moving into the deadline. But I don't know, because I don't know what the market is for him. I don't know what they would expect in a deal, and I don't know what other teams would expect to give up. So I'm going to say no, just based off the fact that I really don't know what his value is right now.
100%. It's kind of like a weird situation. Like could he draw like a fourth or a fifth? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's a legitimate question. I'm not sure. The last player we have on the Bruins hot stove, Trent Frederick. He is hurt at the moment. He is week to week with a lower body injury. I'm going to say 1,000% yes, he's getting moved to the trade deadline. 100%. Mark?
Yeah, just because of his week to week or his status, he can still be traded. He's not on LTIR, so that's when I do believe a player cannot be moved. But yeah, I do see him being a very high commodity in a league where a playoff team could grab onto him. He does, regardless of his production in Boston this year. He does provide that playoff grit that other teams need and they would want. And I think that another team would overpay for it, to be honest with you, regardless of his streakiness and so on. If they can get a first or a second for Frederick, I'm totally on board. And I was a Frederick guy too, since he was drafted, played at Wisconsin, a couple of years in Providence and obviously in Boston. But just things haven't seemed to work out. But if a team like St. Louis wants to, give up a first round pick 1-for-1, you do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. David?
Two problems that I have with Frederick right now is relating to the injury. It's if you trade him, he has to pass the physical from the other team. And then secondly, if there's some like unwritten agreement that, okay, you guys take him, but he's going to be hurt for another little while, the trade value is going to be lesser. And that is frustrating. Mark, you got something?
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion can we please have the Minnesota Wild do the procedure?
So those are the two issues that I have right now with Trent Frederick. So again, I want to see him moved, and I think he will be, but I think we're going to be underwhelmed with the return because of this injury. Again, it could just be them saying this, and come Friday he gets moved and everything's fine, and teams know that because they're going to call and they're going to ask about it, obviously, if they haven't already. But if he is week to week, then I think that lowers the value and lowers the return, which really sucks. But I think he's probably, out of the 8 people you have named there, Sam, I think he's probably the safest bet as a guess.
So once again, that is the Bruins trade board. This is our league-wide trade board. We won't go through all the names here. We don't have time for that. But these are just some of the names that Parker and I put together on who we think could get moved. Obviously, Mikko Rantanen's the number one name. I know he already got traded, but he's in trade rumors right now. This is non-Bruins, by the way. So Riley Smith from the Rangers, Brock Nelson, Braden Shen, Luke Shen, Elias Pettersson, Alex Tuck, Jordan Kyrou, Yanni Gord, Brock Besser, Brandon Tanev, Ricard Raquel, Eric Carlson, Jordan Bennington, Quentin Byfield, Kyle Palmieri, Vitek Vanacek, Alexander Georgiev, Anders Lee, and Matthias Machelli. So those are some of the names on our trade board as of now. Now, that could constantly change from now until Friday, but that is what we have as of today. Speaking of Friday, coming up on Friday, we are going to be live for the NHL trade deadline coming up at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be live through the deadline all afternoon. We're going to have a lot of different guests on throughout the day on trade deadline day. So if you want to come by, it'll be right here on the Black and Gold Productions YouTube channel, and we'll be live all afternoon. So please be sure to come by and come hang out during the deadline on Friday. We'll let you know every trade that goes down, Bruins or not. We'll tell you everything. We'll be with you all afternoon on Friday. So that is coming up Friday at 12 right here on YouTube. Who's ready for the trade deadline? I'm ready.
I am so ready for that day, to be honest with you guys. It's a pleasure to be with you guys and many guests that we have on here weekly. But this is going to be fun because if I'm not mistaken, we could probably be here for 6 hours. I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna be here for 6 hours, but I think we're gonna be here for a solid 4. So
okay.
I'm thinking probably we're gonna go until like 3:30, 4 o'clock on Friday, because that's probably when the trades will die down. Like for those who don't know, the trades have to be into the league by 3 o'clock. That's when the deadline hits. You can't make any trades after 3 o'clock. Just because a trade isn't announced by 3 o'clock doesn't mean it hasn't happened. So we have to wait, because trades will slowly start to trickle out by like 3:15, 3:30, 3:45. So that's why we're going to be live until about 4 o'clock Eastern on Friday during the deadline. So
please subscribe.
What's that?
Please subscribe if you want to see this and be with us, and provide information in the chat. Hang out with us all day. Bring out your favorite beverage. We'd love to have you, but please subscribe and obviously like the video.
Absolutely. I'm going to be chilling out all Friday afternoon with you guys. We'll be live reacting to the deadline. It's going to be a fun day. So we have lots of special guests planned, and we will let you know about those guests throughout the week. This should be a very exciting day on Friday. I'm excited to see what the Bruins do. I'm excited to see what other teams do around the NHL. Parker and I actually had a call for about an hour on Friday, kind of going over through a rundown of what we're going to do for the deadline on Friday, like graphics wise and the whole 9 yards. It's going to be a great show, and hopefully you guys are ready for it. It's going to be a fun one. So if you guys are listening on Spotify and you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to listen in live Friday during the deadline. It's going to be available. Will it be available on our social medias as well during the deadline as well? So it'll be available as
wherever it's being televised or streamed right now. It's going to be on the same areas.
Exactly. So
it just won't be available afterwards. Like, this is a live event only, correct, Mark?
Yes.
Well, no, they can come back and go into the live area and watch it again.
So it will not be available.
It's on demand.
This podcast the trade deadline stream will not be available on Spotify and Apple, but it will be available to go back and watch on YouTube replay after it's over. So that's what we're gonna do for that coming up on Friday. So definitely be sure to come by.
Hey, speaking of trade deadline, check out Dom's thing for you, Sam.
Just an FYI, trades can happen after 3 p.m. and any day after that. They're not done by 3 and filed with the league. The player is not eligible for the playoffs. That is true. That is very true. But commonly, that's why I said commonly. That's why they come out. Yeah.
Shout out Dom again. Hopefully you're good, brother.
Yeah. Hopefully Dom's doing good. Upcoming games coming up around the NHL for the Bruins this week. They have a game in less than 2 hours after playing yesterday against Pittsburgh. They're playing Minnesota today at the XL Energy Center in St. Paul. That game's going to be at 3:30 up in Minnesota. This game will be available on Nessun, and it'll be available on TNT, True TV, and Max. Also, I'll be streaming the game over on my channel at 3:30 today. What are we looking for out of this one against Minnesota here today, David?
I feel like all the games leading into the deadline are the same for me. I want to see no injuries. I'm very intrigued by who's going to be hauled out of lineups. Obviously, you want to see a good effort put in. I'd love to see Pasternak keep his point streak going. I'd love to see guys like Geekie, Merkulov, two of them in particular. I'd love to see them get on the score sheet here over the next couple of games leading into the deadline to up that trade value just a little bit more. And it'll be interesting to see how the roster looks in today's game versus how it'll look a week from today. So something to keep an eye on for sure.
Mark?
What a shitty schedule. shitty scheduling. You play in Pittsburgh at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon, and then you have to fly to the heartland of this country to play a game at 4:00 against the Minnesota Wild. I don't know. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting one. Minnesota is a good team. I don't watch a ton of Wild games, but they are a good structured team that could bring it. And if they have a day of rest, I don't know. This could be an ugly game. But Swayman is in tonight, so there's some hope of good goaltending, and hopefully the guys in front of him show up on this road, because the road has not been very good for the Bruins lately. So we'll see what happens.
Both teams are battling injuries right now. Dom just made me laugh. I heard McAvoy is on the trip and brought an axe with him to see the Wild doctors. Oh, boy.
See?
Oh, boy. Hey, if Sweeney wasn't going to be the one to come out and say, screw the Wild doctors, we know the guy who's actually injured would, right? Yeah, totally. Oh, my God. That's funny. That's great. So they play the Wild today up in St. Paul, and they come home after this weirdly scheduled part of the season. They come home for Nashville on Tuesday at the Garden. They got shut out the other time they met back in October, November, early in the season. Let's hope they don't get shut out this time, Mark.
Yeah. Another team that's struggling to be relevant in a league of relevancy. Hopefully this is a game that they can capture. It's a home game. The home fans need it. And this is also a game that I believe our Black and Gold Productions colleague, Chad Jones, is going to attend. Chad was our Bruins writer out in California covering the West Coast games for the Bees, and he has moved to Boston recently. So Tom Caliuti was unable to unable to attend this game. And actually, Sam, I asked you if you wanted to go, but you were very busy, and I wanted to reward you for what you do here on a regular basis for this podcast, the live stream, and so on. But unfortunately, you couldn't make it, so I went down the list, and Chad said that he was available. So hopefully he gets accepted to go into that game and cover it. But yeah, this is a game I really want to see win, because of the fact is that Nashville is not playing well. But then again, if you go back an hour and a half ago, we talked about the Bruins and how they played against teams that are below them. So we really don't know what we're going to expect out of this one.
Absolutely. I appreciate the offer. If there's a Thursday night game at the Garden, I might hop on that for sure. They travel again. What is up with this league scheduling weird road trips and games in weird places? So let me get this straight. So they have a 2-game back-to-back against Pittsburgh and Minnesota. They come home for Nashville Tuesday, and then they go on the road to Carolina to take on the Hurricanes on Thursday. What is happening? Why is this happening? So anyway, they take on the Hurricanes in Raleigh on Thursday. Beatdown? Legitimate
Which
question.
way?
What's that?
Which way is the beatdown?
You know which way.
Yeah.
David?
This is good. Oh, good.
Yeah, just to touch on that Nashville game, it's the battle of two teams that are nowhere near what people thought they were going to be in the offseason. Everyone thought Nashville was going to come out with all their new toys and look really good, and the Bruins were going to do the same, but here we are, bad versus bad. Yeah, the one in Raleigh, again, this is another interesting situation with who's going to be held out of the lineup, considering the trade deadline is the next day. I'm sure that all teams would rather play the day before than the day on, so hopefully Friday is an off day for the Bruins, no practices, stuff like that, and they can just kind of, sit at home or sit with family or do whatever they need to do to prepare for life after deadline, whether it's, preparing to move or things like that. I think sometimes we take the human aspect out of it. Same thing goes for Carolina, really, because you got a guy like Mikko Rantanen who went for, a pretty wild price, went back to the Avalanche for him. and now they're looking at moving him again because they can't afford him. So it's definitely an interesting situation that they're in as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a beatdown, and I'm kind of cool with it at this point because it just leads into the deadline with more incentive to sell off a few extra pieces and see where we are in the offseason.
Absolutely. If we don't like the schedule, we can't blame the NHL. Blame Neely for approving it before it's finalized. He has the option to ask for changes. Come on, Cam.
Man, it always comes back to the Bruins management.
Always. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Here's the Bruins management. Here's everything that revolves around it. It all comes back to boom right there. You know, Mark?
You're talking about the game against the
Hurricanes.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, scheduled loss maybe because the Hurricanes are good. You know, they're definitely a playoff team. They're definitely building to go for it. And if I'm not mistaken, Tom Dundon is the GM. Is that right or no? No, it's not. Sorry. But they've been a traditional team that has gone for it when they know that they have a potential Stanley Cup run in them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make more moves, whether it be Rantanen or not. But yeah, I don't have a feeling about this one. Bruins on the road against a team like this could get ugly. And if I'm not mistaken, the last time we played, or one of the times we played Carolina, didn't they put up like 6 or 8?
They lost 8-1.
Yeah, so I'm not having a good feeling already.
Final score was, and I remember I ended the stream early because I was just pissed off at that game. Yep. So.
Yeah, it was like their worst loss since like they played the Hurricanes in 2019 or something. So.
God.
Oh no, they lost 8-2 to Buffalo this year.
Oh,
that's going to be a pretty tragic loss.
Yeah,
it was Buffalo for crying out loud.
Eric Tulsky is the GM, Mark.
Eric Tulsky.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, we already talked. I'm over this.
Yeah. Tampa on Saturday. Thanks, Cam. Thank you so much. Playing the Lightning on Saturday, March 8th, down in Tampa. So these Bruins players won't be able to be home with their families, and hoping that they don't get traded because they're going to be on the road. So their lives could change, and they won't have their loved ones there to support them on probably some of the most important days of their lives. And it's going to be really unfortunate. They're going to be sitting in a hotel room hoping they don't get traded.
Hey, I do want to say good on the NHL for not having any scheduled games during the trade deadline. I think this is the second year in a row that they've done this, and I like it. And I think that was from the players, and possibly the union saying this is a really tough time for what's that?
I have 6 games on Friday, March 7th.
Oh, really?
Jets, Devils, Red Wings, Capitals, Utah, Chicago, Minnesota, Vancouver, Pittsburgh, Vegas, St. Louis, Anaheim.
Did they not have games last year?
I don't remember if they did, but there are 6 games on.
Well, maybe it's a discussion that they would like to have in the future CBA is to not have any games on trade deadline day because of the human factor.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But,
my bad. I'll take an L on that one.
Yeah, but anyway, so they're gonna be down in Tampa probably for this deadline. So Sweeney and Neely are probably gonna be in some sort of like conference center or maybe in a hotel room deciding the future of the Bruins. I'm not sure where they're gonna be. They'll have to figure it out somehow on trade deadline day. I'll tell you that. David, what are your thoughts on this one?
The only point I want to make is that I'm very interested to see what the Bruins roster looks like. It's hard to have an opinion on a win-loss or who's going to score anything when you don't know what the roster is going to look like. But point. I think it's fair to assume that the game that gets played tonight, the game that gets played on Thursday, and the game that gets played on Saturday, all 3 of those will have different lineups.
Yeah. You're so right. You're so
makes you think all of a sudden. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like this. Oh man. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be interesting to see what the lineups they put out today. We got a game in about an hour and a half. Yeah, should be very interesting. Anyway, so those are the games coming up this week, coming up towards the deadline and after the deadline. Man, what a wild time. Can't believe we're already at the deadline. Isn't it weird? We're already at the deadline. I feel like the season's like flown by, like
Crazy.
faster than usual, right?
January felt like it took 3 months to end, and then February came and gone in like 2 days. Before we get into the live question, Sam, I just want to throw a little shout out to you and Parker. A lot of work by you guys behind the scenes for Friday's presentation. I'm so looking forward to everything, not just sitting here talking with you guys, but the production that you guys have going on in the background. I think it's going to be a really cool time. The trade deadline's always been a bit of a holiday for me. I take it off work. I used to stay home from school to sit in front of this and watch it on Trade Center on TSN. So the fact that I'll be able to have Trade Center on one side, Twitter going on another side, while the three of us, along with all of our guests, get to discuss everything that happened, and obviously the people in the chat as well, I think it's going to be such a cool experience, and I just cannot wait. It's going to be a really long week leading up to Friday because I am stoked for this.
Yeah. So am I. It should be a blast on Friday. So, Parker and I have been having so many conversations about what we should do, what certain things we should have in the show, such as, whatever. Like, I'm even considering having a what's for lunch segment because it's going to be during the middle of the day and like people are going to be eating and stuff. So I'm considering having that. I know Kevin's probably interested in that.
Wow, you don't even know about Kevin and his eating habits when he was a part of this podcast.
So shout out to you, Kevin.
That's funny.
Anyway, talking shit. Yes, indeed. It's all in good fun, of course. All right, let's get into your live questions. We got a little bit of time left. I got a game to call in a little bit, so
let's get through this. It's send them in as soon as possible because we only have a couple more minutes to go.
If you have some questions, make sure to send them in the live chat. We love to chat with you all about the Bruins, and any questions you guys have, make sure to send them in. I'll eat enough for you, Sam. For you too, Sam. Don't worry. Okay, good. I'm glad. Thank you. Oh God.
When he was on the pod and and Dom was on with him too, he was notorious for having the loudest rapper of a snack. And we used to call him Crunchy Cruncherson.
Crunchy Cruncherson, that's great. Odds that Marchand gets moved, 20%.
Yeah, I'd sit around that as well. That 20% is only
25 for me.
25.
I think that'll come into if he wants to be moved and if they blow him away with a package. I think it really needs to meld together in terms of what's best for the Bruins and what's best for Brad. I think two of those things really need to mesh together to make that kind of move happen.
Yeah. Mark, 25, you said?
Yeah, I got to be different. You know me.
Yeah, I know. I gotta stick out like a sore thumb sometimes. Any updates on Frederick? Still week to week. He's out of the boot, which is good. He was in a boot the other day, so he's out of that. So that's good. I'm just, I'm hoping he's all right, and hopefully, he's doing okay. Obviously, because he's probably like, oh, people are saying I'm gonna get traded. I don't want to get traded, but I might get traded. So who knows? Clovis says he's a hard pass on trading Carlo. So am I.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, he makes a point. He really does. I mean, he's a good defenseman. He's well-liked. Shutdown guy. He's not going to produce a ton of offense, but you do need those guys. I like how the Boston Bruins over the years have facilitated a bigger defenseman with a smaller guy, and he's always been that type of person. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, if somebody comes with a price that you can't refuse, I don't know. I kind of want to pull the trigger.
Absolutely. This question's for David from Kevin. Who do you want to see moved for a successful deadline, in your opinion?
So, in order for me to consider it a successful deadline, it wouldn't be more so about who gets moved. It'd be more so about what we get in return. I want to see young assets coming in. So whether that's prospects that have some sort of ceiling and draft picks. In terms of people getting moved out, I think Frederick is almost a guarantee, and Geekie and Frederick get moved, and we get draft capital for two of those. I would consider that to be, like an A minus an A. If he's able to move Brad for a first and a prospect, that might be where it starts to bump up to the A plus. If he can get someone to overpay for some of the lesser guys that we know are going to be looked at, then we're getting into territory of a very, very good deadline.
Yeah. As long as they make moves and get draft capital, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Favorite Don Sweeney trade deadline move, considering it may be his last?
I'll start first. The Garnet Hathaway Dmitry Orlov was probably my favorite. I was such a big fan of Orlov. Obviously, it didn't turn out good, but I'm just considering how I felt at the time. The Orlov move was probably my favorite of his deadline moves in the recent past.
I'm going to go with all three on David's thought. Is you brought in Tyler Bertuzzi as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the Boston Bruins that year were on a record-breaking year. Nobody has ever played hockey like that, ever. So a general manager that has seen that and consistency and how the chemistry has gelled throughout that lineup absolutely put all chips in on a season where he thought was going to be a cup winner. And I think that he did the right thing, even trading a first-round pick, which I hate doing. But in a year like that, and you could get those complementary pieces that could bring you over the threshold of a championship, I think he did a great job. I don't complain about anything that he did that year.
When you're that close to being a cup, I mean, they were the cup contender. So when you know that you're the team that's going for it, you have to be okay with trading that future capital when you know that you're right. Like, obviously, it wasn't the ending that we wanted or expected, but you have to go for it when you're that good.
Right. My favorite trade deadline move, even though it was not on trade deadline day, Hampus Lindholm. To me, that was probably one of my personal favorite moves that Sweeney has ever made, is bringing in Lindholm. I mean, yeah, you gave up a first, but look what else he gave up. John Moore and Urho Vakanainen for Hampus Lindholm. Yes, please. Thank you very much. I'll take that any day of the week. Yeah. Any day of the week that ends in a Y. Spoiler, they all end in Y. I'll take it.
Spoiler.
Dom called me Pickles. Okay.
Oh, back in the day. Yeah. Back in the day, Dom used to call him Pickles.
Obviously, part of the return for Marchand's a first-round pick. What kind of player would we see get sent to Boston? A prospect. Preferably somebody who's on like ECHL or AHL level, right, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, a pick following the first round, I don't think would do the organization justice, to be honest with you. I would rather have a high-end prospect that's in somebody's minor pro system that can come over as well, and not a pick where if you pick out of the NCAA per se, you're going to have to wait 4 years, or the CHL, where they have that rule where you can't play the American Hockey League until you're 20 years old. You would want somebody that's already that's knocking on the NHL right now to come back the other way, and not somebody you want to wait for.
I think the other thing you have to look at with a deal like that, because obviously this question is being asked because they want to know, what exciting player is coming back. You got to consider Marchand is only going to a contender. They're not going to want to take people out of their lineup, so it's going to be a prospect. It's not going to be someone of name, we'll say. But if you basically, who was it asked that question, Sam? Sorry.
It was Ryan Bosworth.
Okay, so Ryan, if you want to know the kind of the caliber of player and some possible names that might come back, go look at other teams' rosters and go look at their minor league system in terms of the teams that are going for a cup this year. And you'll be able to pick out a couple names that would make sense to come back along with the first. But chances are the guy that's coming back is someone you've never heard of, unless you're Dom.
That's great. Any chance moving Zadorov?
No.
I don't believe so, Clovis. Just for the pure fact that he does have trade protection and the year that he's had this year, which is not great when you look at the optics. But I think he's still leading the league in penalties. That's not good for another team that wants to bring on somebody. I don't think so. Maybe next year, if he's unhappy but plays better and kind of increases his value and obviously waives the trade protection. But I think he's possibly going to be here for the rest of his contract. If not possibly, 5 years?
6.
He plays he plays 6. He plays 4 years and bought out the last 2, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But he is an aging veteran, just like Elias Lindholm was when he came here as well.
I think that's something. Sorry, Sam. I think that's something else that you really need to consider with these people who want to see a rebuild. Guys like Swayman, Elias Lindholm, Zadorov. In order to move these guys, you're going to have to retain a lot of salary right now. And that's just not the way that the Bruins have been doing business lately, to sign these guys to long-term contracts, let them go in the first year while retaining salary on every other year. It's just not the way you're doing business right now. And I will reiterate the point that I made months ago, is that Zdeno Chara's worst year as a Bruin was his first year. So let's just give this guy some time and see where it is. But no, there's a 0% chance that Zadorov's getting moved.
Also, real quick, don't let other teams squeeze Sweeney like he did with the Lindholm deal. Like, I was not happy with Korpisalo being in that deal, even at retained at 25%. Because what you did was you blindsided 2 goalies that are knocking on NHL time in Brandon Bussey and Michael DiPietro. You blindsided them where now those 2 are UFAs, and now they're going to look at the landscape ahead of them and say, okay, so now you have Korpisalo for 2 more years or 3 more years, whatever, and you have Jeremy Swayman for long term. Where am I going to fit in? They're going to look at that and say, no, I don't want to be here anymore. I need to go to some place where I can be more used at the NHL level with consistent time.
The Olmark deal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Remember the name Albin Boya when college free agency opens up this month, and Gleb Veremeyev. So that's from Dom.
I can barely say those names.
I think Golubiev was, if I'm not mistaken, what's the camp? Development camp invite.
Right.
I could be wrong, but those 2 players bring up a very interesting topic that I'm working on right now. Is, there's Tom is right. NCAA free agency is going to open up soon with their season closing. And teams that are out of the national championship playoffs or whatever. But when you look at the Boston Bruins organization as a player and an agent, how many players and agents are looking at the Boston Bruins going, well, look at Georgi Mikulov. Look at the way Trevor Kuntar is being used right now. Who is really going to take this team seriously if signing with the Boston Bruins? I mean, I know money and opportunity will change the minds of people, but you have to understand that agents are probably saying, just be aware they don't advance prospects very much in Boston. So, keep that in mind. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, that there's a book out and this and that, blah, 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 but just keep in mind that people are talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Dom said that his name is Pickles, Dill Pickles. That's from Dom, by the way. Kevin asks you, Mark, do you think teams will be wary of trading high draft capital for Geekie based off the production being next to Pasternak?
That's a valid point, Kevin. If Geekie were to be a 3rd-line player the whole season, playing with like Coyle and Trent Frederick, I think that you possibly now you're outside of that thought, and now you're thinking like a third. The highest could be a third round pick. And when you do put him into higher caliber situations alongside a player like David Pasternak, yeah, your value is going to go higher, because now that type of player can be slotted into another team's area where he's going to be successful because he's playing with other high talent on that team. So I'm not sure if that's the right answer there, Kevin, but I tried.
Questions for me. Who are your untouchables for moving on this roster? Okay. Untouchables. Like, you cannot. Pasternak at the moment. Swayman. Both Lindholms for different reasons. Zadorov. Marchand. Carlo, Lohrei, Patra.
I think you're missing McAvoy.
McAvoy as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are my untouchables. If you're not in that list, we can talk. And even though I said they shouldn't trade Morris and Geekie, notice how I didn't mention he was an untouchable. He was not, because I know the Bruins are going to shop him. So that I know they are. So if sell high. I said earlier, first round pick, we'll talk. For a guy like him, for who's overachieving right now, sell high and see what you can get. If you're not getting the offers you need, re-sign the guy. What's the harm in that? In my opinion, I was notorious for sneaking a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich into the stream. I believe that. Marchand for Ryan Leonard, book it. I'll take it in a heartbeat.
Straight up.
Can you imagine playing against Marchand and Tom Wilson?
Oh, the shit starter line.
It'd be awful to play against.
Wow, we're all smoking the good shit now.
Jeez.
By the way, if you're a CBD company, we are acquiring advertising.
Oh, God. Reach out to Blackmill Productions LLC at gmail.com.
And send samples.
Oh, no.
Oh, you got me in a coffin fit.
Oh, God. Oh, geez. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Don't sign here if you're a college player. Well, unfortunately, you're probably right.
Something to touch on there, though. Like, I know he's probably saying that a little bit joking, a little bit serious, but this is something else that we can look at if they do move on from the front office. Is this can completely go out the window depending on who they bring in. If there's a history of them being a GM before, then they can look at how they treat prospects. If it's a new guy coming in, you don't really have a background, so you don't know. So it's only really the Swayman and Neely process that won't play these young guys. So if they do move on from these guys and bring in someone new, that rhetoric could change really, really quick.
Okay, no, I want to quickly just touch on this because somebody was talking, and I'm not going to mention any names. So listen to this. Patrick Brown played 29-34, and Tyler Pitlick played 24-53 yesterday in the game. So those are one came from a PTO, and Brown is just a veteran that's with the team for depth. So Duran, Harrison, and Nelson all under 9 minutes.
What the hell are we doing?
Right? I mean,
what are we doing here?
It's just crazy that we're giving opportunities to veterans because they're more apt to be ready when the whistle comes that we need a guy to come up here immediately. But it's not really burying, but I'm seeing a lot of like Brett Harrison. Where's his offensive production that he was doing in the OHL? I don't see it. And I don't see how he's being utilized either to be effective as a decent goal scorer. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, teams and players are going to, agents and players look at this and it could be like some red flags for future signings here, in my opinion.
Very much so. Yeah.
Was Kuntar in the lineup last night? I didn't catch a lot of the game.
No, he's in today.
He's in today?
I believe so.
If I'm not mistaken, Duran is sort of shocked in terms of his play this season.
The beginning of the year was better than what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
I still think that he's got a lot to give. And this is I believe year 2 of his of the AHL. So I think he could be a better player, but I also said the same thing about Brett Harrison. I gave him a pass on his first year of pro, And here we are in the second year, and I don't even think he's got 3 goals.
Man, he had a good preseason too. Brett Harrison looked really good in the preseason.
Did. He did. Yeah, when he was around better players surrounded him, he did really well. So
all right, well, that is going to do it for episode 383 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. This was a fun one today, as always with you guys. By the way, it's always a blast. Just shooting the shit, talking bees with y'all. It's always a fun time. And once again, professional sellout right here. Okay, live Friday, 12 p.m. The NHL trade deadline live with us and more. Coming Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern, live on the YouTube channel and on social media. It'll be available on Mark's Twitter. It'll be available on Facebook. It'll be available everywhere you're seeing this podcast right now. It'll be available live, and it will be available to watch on replay on YouTube after the deadline is over. So if you're listening on Spotify and you're listening on Apple Podcasts and you want to have a destination to follow the deadline on Friday, you're in the right spot. Come watch live during the deadline on Friday, March 7th.
If you're in Newfoundland, that is 1:30 p.m. your time. Just so that you don't go there and see we're not live. It's 1:30 p.m.
12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, and before we leave, can we get another like spike?
Yes.
Hit the like button, please.
Yes.
Hit the like button and subscribe if you're not. There's a big percentage of viewers that are not subscribers. So if we could just hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, it really appreciates us because we really appreciate it. Sorry, because and there's Sharon Dietz. She's probably going to be with us. Sharon, can you please tell us if you're going to be here all day or just a certain segment?
Yeah, that'll be great. But yes, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, go over to the YouTube channel. Make sure to drop a like on the stream and all of our videos, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us out big time, and it helps us grow big time. Try to become a bigger and better YouTube channel as well. So if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a nice review. It helps us out big time, and it helps us grow to become one of the top hockey podcasts out there. Deadline coming up soon on Friday. Should be an absolute blast on Friday afternoon. We'll be live all day for the 2025 NHL trade deadline. That is going to do it for us. For Mark, David, and myself, we are signing off for now. We will see you all on Friday for the 2025 NHL trade deadline. See you guys. Go Bees today.